On paper, 2026 should be just another year.
Wake up, everybody! It's World War III!
30 years. For 30 years, a cartoon family living in a fictional yellow town has been dropping clues, hiding them in calendars, background noise, chalkboard equations, and the stars of their own opening credits. And most of us laughed. We laughed when they said a reality TV billionaire would become president. Then he did. We laughed when they showed a virus from Asia shutting down the entire world. Then it happened. We laughed at the surveillance episode, the one where every phone call in Springfield was intercepted by government agents. 3 years later, Edward Snowden blew the lid off the NSA. So here is the question you need to sit with right now, and I want you to genuinely think about this before we go any further. At what point does coincidence become something else entirely? Because the evidence we are about to walk through is not fan theory. It is not internet rumor. It involves mathematicians, physicists, cryptographers, NASA data, and a date, March 23, 2026. That keeps appearing in this show across dozens of episodes, hidden in places no casual viewer would ever look. Stay with me. By the end of this video, you will not see The Simpsons the same way again. The track record that makes this terrifying. Before we get to 2026, we need to establish something crucial: why anyone should take Simpsons' predictions seriously at all. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. If this were any other cartoon, we would dismiss it instantly. But The Simpsons is different. And the reason comes down to who was actually writing it. Matt Groening did not just hire comedy writers. He deliberately staffed the writer's room with people who held advanced degrees in mathematics, physics, and computer science from institutions like Harvard, Princeton, MIT, and Berkeley. David Cohen has a master's in computer science. Al Jean studied mathematics at Harvard. Jeff Westbrook was a computer science professor before he ever wrote a single joke. These are not people who stumble into accuracy by accident. These are people who calculate it. And calculate it, they have. Prediction 1. The iPhone. In 2007, an episode showed Lisa Simpson using a touchscreen smartphone with video calling. The episode aired 3 months before Steve Jobs unveiled the first iPhone to the world. 3 months. The design matched the real device by roughly 80%. At the time of production, Apple had not publicly announced anything. Whatever information those writers were working from, it was not in any press release. Prediction 2. Autocorrect. In 1998, when mobile phones could barely send a text message, the show depicted an automatic text correction system that turned words into embarrassing nonsense. Sound familiar? A decade later, autocorrect became one of the defining frustrations of the smartphone era. The writers did not just predict the technology. They predicted the exact failure mode of the technology. Prediction 3. Mass surveillance. A 2010 episode showed government agents intercepting every phone call and message sent by Springfield's residents. The scale was total. The methods were specific. 3 years later, in 2013, Edward Snowden's leaked NSA documents revealed a global surveillance apparatus that mirrored the cartoon in technical detail. The Simpsons writers were not guessing. They were describing something. Prediction 4. Donald Trump as president. This is the one that broke the internet. In the year 2000, the show aired an episode depicting Trump in the Oval Office. This was treated as obvious absurdity, a joke about the worst possible future for America. 16 years later, on November 8, 2016, the joke became the lead story on every news channel on Earth. Prediction 5. The pandemic. In 2013, an episode depicted a virus originating in Asia that caused global panic. People wore masks, economies collapsed, schools and businesses closed, governments imposed lockdowns. When COVID-19 arrived in 2020, viewers began pulling up the episode frame by frame. The show had even included a graph depicting the spread pattern of the disease, a curve that later matched real infection data with unsettling accuracy. Mathematicians ran the numbers on all of this. The probability of these specific predictions occurring through random chance was calculated at approximately 1 in 2 million. So when we tell you that The Simpsons appears to have been pointing at 2026, at a specific month, a specific date, a specific time, you now understand why this is not something to dismiss. The hidden details. Nobody was supposed to find. This is where things stop being interesting and start being genuinely disturbing. Because the predictions we just covered? Those were visible. Those were things you could see on screen. What we are about to show you was hidden, deliberately placed in the background, encoded in the visual noise of episodes that most viewers watch once and move on from. Someone wanted this information in the episodes. Someone also made sure it would not be easily found. The calendar in the background. In a 1997 episode depicting a strange catastrophe striking Springfield, an episode that, by the way, features a red sky and residents fleeing the town in mass panic, there is a calendar visible on a wall in one scene. Most viewers never gave it a second look. It was background decoration. But when fans began analyzing the episode frame by frame after the Trump prediction came true in 2016, they zoomed in. The calendar shows the year 2026. The month visible is March. Let that sit for a second. An episode from 1997, depicting a catastrophe in Springfield with a red sky, mass evacuation, and widespread panic, has a calendar in the background pointing to March 2026. The hidden audio. In the same episode, Homer sits watching television. The news anchor in the background is speaking, but the audio is muffled, the kind of indistinct sound that animators use to create ambiance without it being distracting. Standard practice. Nobody listens to it. An enthusiast in Canada decided to run the background audio through noise reduction software. The anchor, clearly audible after processing, says, "An object is approaching the Earth. A collision is inevitable." The fragment lasts 2 seconds. At normal volume and speed during regular viewing, it is impossible to hear. Someone put it there intentionally, in an episode from 1997, layered beneath the noise floor of a single scene. The ancient Celtic symbols. In a 2003 episode, Lisa discovers an artifact covered in strange symbols. The symbols were dismissed by viewers as invented fictional writing, the kind of decorative nonsense that animators use to suggest ancient mystery without committing to any real language. An Oxford professor of archaeology saw the episode in 2020 and was struck by something odd. The symbols were real. They matched ancient Celtic script, a genuine historical writing system that almost no one outside of academic archaeology would recognize on sight. He translated the inscription. It read, "When iron birds fall from the sky, a new era will begin." The creators of the show have never explained why they used a real, dead ancient language in the background of a throwaway scene, or what they intended the message to mean. The photograph. In a 2008 episode, a character flips through a family photo album. One photograph flashes on screen for a single frame, literally a fraction of a second. A fan in Germany paused the episode at precisely the right moment. The photograph shows a newspaper. The headline is about a global event in 2026. The text is blurry, but specific words are legible. Evacuation, East Coast. Beneath the headline is a date. March 23, 2026. The animators have publicly acknowledged that they hide Easter eggs in background details. When asked specifically about this image and others like it, they have declined to comment. A studio representative called it a coincidence and a product of fan imagination. But the frame exists. It is in the episode. Anyone can pause and verify it. Ask yourself, Why would an animator spend time creating a realistic-looking newspaper with a specific date in 2026 for a frame that lasts 1/32nd of a second, in a photograph inside a photo album, in a background scene? What purpose does that serve as a joke? The Map of the Future. A 2011 episode showed a world map depicting changed coastlines. Islands gone, sea levels risen, geography redrawn. When climatologists compared the cartoon's map to scientific models of sea level rise, the agreement was 73%. That alone would be striking. But here is the detail that should genuinely unsettle you. The changes on the cartoon's map matched climate models that were not published until 2015, 4 years after the episode aired. The writers were not adapting existing science, they were ahead of it. The Comet episode, a warning dressed as comedy. Let's talk about the episode that sits at the center of all of this. Bart Sees a Comet, Season 6, 1995. On the surface, it is a perfectly standard Simpsons episode. Absurdist, funny, with a predictably chaotic Springfield at its heart. Bart accidentally discovers a comet heading toward the town. The residents panic. Everyone piles into a bomb shelter. Homer stays outside. The comet burns up in the atmosphere because Springfield's toxic air pollution is so thick it destroys the object on entry. The town is saved. Everyone laughs. It is a classic episode. Most people remember it fondly. But in 2022, astronomer Lawrence Carter at the Mount Wilson Observatory re-watched it with a different eye. And what he noticed about the comet's trajectory stopped him cold. The comet in the cartoon enters the atmosphere at an angle of 42 degrees. That is not a round number. It is not an obvious dramatic choice. It is a highly specific figure that no comedy writer would land on randomly. In 2021, NASA published data on a real asteroid designated 2019 BX4 with a predicted close approach to Earth in 2026. In the event of a trajectory deviation, the calculated angle of atmospheric entry is 41 degrees, with a margin of error of less than 1%. 42 degrees in the cartoon, 41 degrees for the real object. 1995 to 2021, 26 years apart. But it does not stop with the angle. Theoretical physicist Jennifer Morris analyzed the comet episode for a science podcast in 2020. She was not looking for predictions. She was examining it as a curiosity, a comedy episode that seemed to have put unusual effort into its science. What she found was that the calculations governing the comet's destruction in the cartoon are mathematically correct. The object's size, velocity, and the atmospheric density required to cause its breakup all align with real physical models. This is not the level of scientific detail you include in a cartoon for the sake of a joke about pollution. Someone consulted real physicists. Someone ran the actual numbers. Here is where it gets darker. In 2012, animator David Silverman gave an interview to a small podcast. He was asked about the strangest instruction he had ever received during his career on the show. He described an incident from 1994, the year the Comet episode was in production. A folder of documents arrived at the studio, containing detailed calculations and diagrams for the episode. Silverman said the materials looked like actual scientific reports, not creative development sketches. When he asked where they came from, a producer told him the consultant had asked not to be named. The podcast recording was deleted 3 days after it was published. Only 2 people retained audio copies. And then there are the chalkboard equations. In the scene where Bart discovers the comet at the observatory, formulas are visible on the chalkboard behind him. In 2019, a graduate student in astrophysics at MIT examined the equations out of curiosity. They described the orbital mechanics of an object that would appear at a specific point in the sky 31 years after the episode's air date. The episode aired in 1995. 31 years later is 2026. The formula is for 2026. Written on a cartoon chalkboard in 1995, hidden in plain sight in a scene most viewers spend zero time thinking about. In the episode's final moments, after the crisis has passed and Springfield is celebrating, the camera pulls back to reveal the night sky. And there, in the corner of the frame, a small glowing object moves across the stars. The comet that everyone said burned up. Still out there. Still moving. An object no one is watching. An object that will return. What did the writers actually know? Here is the question that connects everything. How? How does a comedy writing staff, however brilliant, consistently produce content that predicts specific future events with documented accuracy? How do background details in 1990s cartoons contain information that matches scientific publications from decades later? How do hidden audio clips, chalkboard equations, and single-frame newspaper photographs all point toward the same year, the same month, the same date? The most charitable explanation is that these are genuinely brilliant people with access to cutting-edge scientific information, using the show as a vehicle to explore worst-case scenarios. Matt Groening himself, in a 2019 interview, hinted at using a system for trend analysis, but admitted he could not explain the accuracy of specific details down to the month. The less charitable explanation begins with a name: Dr. Smith. In 1997, a consultant began visiting the Simpsons production studio. Writers referred to him only as Dr. Smith. He arrived every few months carrying folders of documents and requested closed meetings with the head writers. A production assistant who glimpsed the contents of one folder described graphs of celestial body trajectories with timestamps extending into the 2020s. When the assistant asked which episode the material was for, they were told to mind their own business. In 2019, hackers breached Fox's old servers and leaked a cache of internal correspondence from the 1990s. One email, dated March 1996, was sent from a producer to Matt Groening. It read, "Contact confirmed the data for 26. We need to figure out how to show this so it looks like a joke." Fox's legal team moved immediately. Every website that published the correspondence received a takedown demand. The materials were removed within 2 weeks. Journalist Simon Singh, who published a book on the mathematical mysteries embedded in The Simpsons in 2018, interviewed several former writers while researching. One of them, who requested anonymity, told Singh something extraordinary. They said, "We were getting access to information we weren't supposed to know. We were given reports to read from places where regular writers never go." When Singh pressed on where those places were, the writer refused to answer. Physicist Michio Kaku, in a 2020 broadcast, mentioned The Simpsons as an example of scientific information leaking into popular culture. He said, "Sometimes those who know about upcoming events try to warn through art. This gives them an alibi of denial. You can always say it was just fantasy." The host asked whether Kaku believed The Simpsons was such a case. Kaku was silent for 5 seconds. Then he changed the subject. The asteroid, what NASA is actually saying. Now let's talk about what is actually, verifiably happening in the real world. Because this is not only about a cartoon. NASA's Planetary Defense Catalog is public information. In 2021, NASA published updated data on asteroid 2019 BX4. The object is approximately 400 meters in diameter. For reference, the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs was roughly 10 kilometers wide. The Chelyabinsk meteor that exploded over Russia in 2013, injuring over 1,500 people, was about 20 meters wide. 400 meters places 2019 BX4 in a category where a direct impact would be an extinction-level event for a large region and a civilization-disrupting event globally. On March 23, 2026, this object will pass within 80,000 kilometers of Earth. That is roughly 1/5 the distance to the Moon. The official probability of a collision, as stated by NASA, is 0.3%. Governments and space agencies have publicly characterized the pass as safe. But the object was only discovered in 2019. Before that, It was in a blind spot, a region of space where the angle of sunlight makes observation from Earth impossible. Astronomers calculating backward from its known orbit have determined it passed near Earth in 2016 and again in 2013. Nobody saw it either time. In October 2023, an anonymous post appeared on a scientific forum. The author claimed to be an engineer on one of the 3 observatories monitoring the asteroid around the clock. The post stated that the actual probability of impact had been recalculated internally to 12%, not 0.3. The reason? Jupiter's gravitational influence in February 2026 could deflect the asteroid at a critical angle, altering its trajectory toward Earth. The post was deleted within 1 hour. The account was immediately blocked. Screenshots spread widely before the deletion. The European Space Agency launched a continuous monitoring program in 2022. 3 separate observatories track this object around the clock. ESA has characterized the data from this program as classified, available only to a select group of specialists. Official justification: preventing public panic. The informal justification: according to sources within the astronomical community, the most recent trajectory calculations are significantly less reassuring than the public statement suggests. An unofficial network of scientists from multiple countries, operating outside government agencies and sharing data independently, published their most recent assessment in December 2024. Their conclusion: the probability of impact has risen to 18%. Jupiter's gravitational window will open in February 2026. A trajectory shift of half a degree would be sufficient to produce a collision course. Half a degree? The secret code, hidden in plain sight. A programmer in Boston named Alex Chen spent 2 years building an algorithm to analyze every Simpsons episode associated with confirmed predictions. He was looking for mathematical patterns in air dates, episode numbers, and the timestamps of key moments within episodes. His results, published in 2023, revealed something that is extraordinarily difficult to explain away. Episodes containing accurate predictions were not distributed randomly across the show's run. They aired at intervals that are precise multiples of 7. Exactly 700 weeks elapsed between the episode predicting Trump's election and the episode depicting the pandemic, between the surveillance episode and the economic crisis episode. Exactly 350 weeks. The mathematical probability of this occurring by chance: 1 in 80,000. But Chen found something else. In episodes associated with predictions, a clock visible in the background consistently displays the same time: 3:15 a.m. This appeared across 9 separate episodes spanning 15 years of production. Different writers, different directors, different animators. Same time on the clock. 3:15. Written numerically, 315. As a decimal, 3.15. The digits sum to 5.25. Reversed, 25.2. February 25th. The date when, according to trajectory models, asteroid 2019BX4 will enter Jupiter's critical gravitational zone, the point at which any deflection of its path begins. Stanford cryptographer Sarah Mills became interested in Chen's work and applied frequency analysis to the dialogue in key episodes. She identified specific words appearing with statistically abnormal frequency: sky, march, get ready, coast. Taking the first letters of these words in the order they appear in the comet episode produces a sequence. When Mills ran that sequence through a standard geographic decoder, the output was a set of coordinates. The coordinates locate a point in the Atlantic Ocean, approximately 1,000 kilometers off the coast of Florida. Those coordinates match the predicted impact zone of asteroid 2019BX4 if its trajectory is deflected at the critical angle identified by the unofficial monitoring network, impact zone data that was never publicly released. The probability of a random coordinate match at that precision: 1 in several billion. And then there is the music. In 2024, An anonymous post on a public forum published an audio analysis of the Comet episode's original soundtrack. When the background score is slowed to exactly half speed, a sequence of tones becomes audible, tones that are completely inaudible at normal playback speed. The tones correspond to Morse code. The decoded message, March 23rd, 8:04 Greenwich Mean Time, East Coast, evacuation. 8:04 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time on March 23rd is the calculated time of asteroid 2019 BX4's closest approach to Earth. Alf Clausen composed and arranged music for The Simpsons for 32 years. He passed away in 2019. 3 months before his death, he gave an interview to student radio at the University of Michigan. He was asked about the strangest assignment of his long career. His answer: "I was once given a tape with a sequence of sounds and asked to weave it into the background music so that it would be inaudible." He said he asked why. He was told, "Someone needs to hear." The recording exists in the university's radio archive. Anyone can request it. The episode They Locked in a Vault. In January 2025, an anonymous Reddit account posted a complete storyboard for an unaired Simpsons episode. The user claimed to have been working in the production studio's archives and had discovered footage that was sealed away in 2002. The episode had a title, "The Last Day of Springfield." Moderators deleted the post within 6 hours, but thousands of people had already saved the images. The storyboard depicted Springfield residents evacuating in mass panic. The sky in the drawings was red, with a bright object visible in the distance, growing larger with each frame. Homer Simpson stood on the roof of his house, pointing toward the horizon, directing his family away from the light. Handwritten dialogue beneath each frame. Marge says, "We should have listened to the warning." Lisa replies, "They've been warning for 30 years. No one wanted to believe it." The final frames show the family sitting together in their basement, holding hands. The clock on the basement wall reads 8:04. A white flash of light fills the basement window. Then the screen goes dark. At the bottom of the final image, a production date, April 2002. 1 month before the episode was reportedly placed under seal. A former Fox employee, writing under a pseudonym, confirmed the episode's existence in a post from March 2025. They stated that studio executives received an instruction from an unspecified authority. The episode was never to be released. No reason was given. All footage, including voice recordings, was transferred to a sealed archive. Access was restricted to 3 individuals. One of them was Matt Groening. Groening has rarely given interviews since 2020. He lives in relative seclusion on a ranch in Oregon. In June 2025, a group of researchers attempted to contact Groening through his representative. They wanted to ask directly about the predictions and the sealed episode. The representative responded that Groening was unavailable due to health reasons. 1 week later, one member of the group received an anonymous letter. The envelope was yellow. Inside was a handwritten note. "I tried to warn them without being stopped. Art is the only way to speak the truth when the truth is forbidden." March 23rd. Take care of your loved ones. MG. A private handwriting analyst compared the note to documented samples of Groening's handwriting. Probability of a match? 87%. The note was passed to a journalist at a major publication. The story was being prepared for publication. The editor-in-chief received a phone call. The article was frozen. The journalist resigned in protest and posted a scan of the letter on his personal account. 2 days later, the account was hacked. All posts were deleted. What governments are quietly doing. Let's look at what is actually happening in the world right now. Not in theory, not in a cartoon, but in verified, documented, publicly reported activity. In 2022, Norway dramatically expanded the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, the facility designed to preserve the genetic diversity of the world's crops in the event of a global catastrophe. Capacity was tripled. The project was completed ahead of schedule. In the same year, the United States launched a program to modernize Cold War-era underground bunker infrastructure. Budget allocated, $7 billion. Completion timeline, early 2026. China has constructed a series of large underground facilities in multiple provinces. Official justification: civil defense against nuclear threat. Construction timelines: staggered completions through late 2025 and early 2026. Private space companies have received classified government contracts. SpaceX is reported, through documents leaked by equipment suppliers, to be developing a rapid orbital evacuation system with the capacity to launch 500 individuals into orbit within a week. The project is not publicly acknowledged. Initial tests were reportedly scheduled for January 2026. Real estate data shows unusual patterns of high-value land purchases in landlocked, high-altitude regions beginning in early 2024. Billionaire's private aviation bookings show unusual concentrations around the final week of March 2026. None of these facts, taken individually, constitute proof of anything. But together, in combination with everything we have covered in this video, the hidden dates, the coded audio, the sealed episode, the mathematical improbabilities, the trajectory data, they form a picture. And that picture looks remarkably like the one The Simpsons has been drawing for 30 years. What does this mean for you right now? Okay, let's step back from the darkness for a moment and be direct with you. We are not telling you the world is ending. We are not telling you to abandon your life, empty your savings, and move to a mountain bunker. That is not what this evidence demands. What this evidence demands is that you pay attention. Here is what we know for certain. Asteroid 2019BX4 is real. It is in NASA's catalog. It will make a close approach on March 23, 2026. The official collision probability is 0.3%. Whether that number is accurate, understated, or classified is something that independent astronomers are actively debating. You can follow that debate yourself. The data is being tracked publicly by amateur astronomers, one of whom broadcasts nightly from Australia and has been viewed by 500,000 people a day. Here is what we know is also certain. The Simpsons has demonstrated a documented, mathematically improbable record of accurately predicting specific future events. Hidden details in multiple episodes point toward March 2026 with a specificity that cannot be explained by coincidence alone. A sealed episode exists. A letter may exist. Scientists with no financial incentive to lie are raising alarms outside official channels. So what do you do with that? Start by asking questions. Not the panicked, conspiratorial kind, the rational kind. Why has the monitoring data on this asteroid been classified? What was in that 1996 email, and why did Fox's legal team move so aggressively to have it removed? Why would an animator hide a specific date in 2026 in a single-frame image that was never meant to be seen? If you believe in being prepared, not just for this scenario, but for any disruption, there is nothing unreasonable about having emergency supplies, knowing your local evacuation routes, and staying informed from multiple sources. That is not panic. That is prudence. The survivalist community has built maps based on the leaked trajectory data. Authorities have called those maps alarmist, but authorities have also not provided any counter-data. The silence itself is worth noting. Here is the question we want to leave with you, and we genuinely want to know your answer. Drop it in the comments right now. If you had been shown, in 2000, a cartoon episode depicting Donald Trump as president, would you have believed it was a prediction? Or would you have said it was just a joke? Because most people said it was just a joke. And then they watched it happen. The final warning. There is one last thing to address, a detail so small and so specific that it serves as either the most extraordinary coincidence in the history of television or the clearest signal of all. In the opening credits of The Simpsons, the stars in the night sky behind the title card are not randomly placed. This has been documented. They correspond to real constellations, mapped accurately. But there is one exception. One bright point of light sits where, according to any star chart, no star should be. An amateur physicist in Tokyo overlaid the positions of the stars in the Simpsons intro against a real-time sky map. That anomalous point of light, the one that has no business being where it is, corresponds precisely to the position of asteroid 2019 as it will appear in the sky on the morning of March 23, 2026, at 8 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. It has been there, in the opening credits, in every episode, for decades, hidden in plain sight, exactly where anyone who knew what to look for would find it. The writers, those Harvard mathematicians, those MIT physicists, those unnamed consultants with their folders of orbital mechanics, spent 30 years building a warning system inside a comedy. They encoded it in calendars and clocks and chalkboard equations and background music and the positions of fake stars. They made it look like jokes so it would survive, so it would air, so it would be preserved in syndication, available for anyone who was ready to look. One of them, possibly the man who created all of it, may have sent a letter on yellow paper with 3 words: "Take care of your loved ones." March 23, 2026. We have the date. We have the time. We have the coordinates. We have the equations. We have the hidden audio. We have the sealed episode. We have the star in the wrong place in the sky. The Yellow family did everything they could. What are you going to do with the warning? If this video made you think, if even one detail landed differently than you expected, then share it. Not because we are asking for views, but because the only way information survives suppression is when enough people know about it that it cannot be erased. Drop your thoughts below. Tell us, which prediction shocked you the most? Which detail do you think is too specific to be coincidence? And are you watching March 23rd with a different set of eyes than you had an hour ago? We will be updating this story as new information comes in. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because if history has taught us anything about the Simpsons, it is this: they are always ahead of us, and we are almost out of time to catch up.